Not everything in life requires your response. The more you chase after validation, engage in meaningless arguments, or try to prove yourself to others, the more you give away your power. True mastery comes when you learn the art of letting go of people, situations, and emotions that do not serve you. Most people react because they feel the need to defend themselves, to be understood, or to correct others. But why? Why waste energy proving a point to someone who has already decided what they believe? Why spend time trying to change people who are committed to misunderstanding you? The moment you realize that silence is a response, that disengagement is a decision, you start to move differently. You no longer react to things that do not matter. You stop explaining yourself to those who do not listen. You free yourself from the exhausting cycle of unnecessary emotional battles. Letting go is not about indifference, it's about wisdom. It's understanding that peace is more valuable than proving a point, that not every action requires a reaction, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not out of weakness, but because your energy is too valuable to be wasted. When you master this, you become untouchable. Think about the last time someone upset you. Maybe they said something hurtful, acted unfairly, or disrespected you. You had two choices: react emotionally, letting their negativity affect you, or step back and decide if it was worth your energy. Most people choose the first option. They argue, overthink, replay the situation in their mind, and in doing so, they allow the situation to live rent-free in their head. But the second option, that's where true power lies. That's where you decide that your peace is more important than their opinion. Letting go means refusing to be held hostage by your emotions. It means no longer letting anger, resentment, or frustration dictate your actions. It's not about pretending something didn't happen. It's about making a conscious decision that it no longer has control over you. People will be rude. Situations will be unfair. Not everything will go your way. But none of it has to disturb your inner world unless you allow it to. The secret to emotional mastery is learning to detach without disengaging from life. You can care without carrying unnecessary burdens. You can observe without absorbing negativity. You can acknowledge situations without letting them control your state of mind. This is how you protect your energy. This is how you stay in control. When you practice letting go, you start noticing how much lighter life becomes. The small things that used to frustrate you no longer matter. The people who once triggered you no longer have power over you. You find yourself responding to challenges with calmness instead of stress, clarity instead of chaos. It's not that life suddenly becomes easier. It's that you have trained yourself to move through it with wisdom and strength. But this shift doesn't happen instantly. It takes practice. Every situation that tests you is an opportunity. Every moment of frustration is a lesson. The key is to remind yourself, is this worth my energy? Will this matter a year from now? Does engaging in this bring me peace or take it away? When you ask these questions, you begin to see things differently. What once triggered an emotional reaction now feels insignificant. What once bothered you now becomes easy to ignore. Imagine how powerful you become when nothing disturbs your peace, when people's negativity no longer affects you, when you move through life with the understanding that your energy is your responsibility. That's the level of mastery you are capable of reaching. It starts with the decision to stop reacting, to stop engaging in unnecessary battles, and to let go of anything that does not add to your peace. So the next time you feel the urge to react, pause, take a deep breath, and remind yourself, your silence is a response. Your peace is more valuable. Let it go. The greatest freedom comes from knowing that nothing outside of you controls your emotions. Not people, not situations, not the past, and not the opinions of others. The moment you take full responsibility for your inner world, you step into a level of power that most people never reach. You no longer wait for circumstances to align in your favor. You no longer depend on others to make you feel good. You become the source of your own peace, and that changes everything. Most people live in reaction mode. They allow their emotions to be dictated by what happens around them. If someone is rude, they get angry. If something doesn't go their way, they get frustrated. If they don't get validation, they feel insecure. But when you take ownership of your emotions, you realize that none of these things have the power to disturb you unless you allow them to. Nothing external can make you feel anything without your permission. The moment you internalize this truth, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the creator of your reality. It's easy to blame others for how you feel. It's easy to say, they made me angry, or that situation ruined my day. But the reality is, no one has that power unless you give it to them. Your emotions are a choice. Every time you react, you are making a decision, conscious or unconscious, to give control of your state of mind to something outside of you. But when you take responsibility, you reclaim that control. You shift from reacting to responding. You become intentional about how you feel, how you think, and how you move through the world. Taking responsibility for your emotions does not mean ignoring your feelings. It means recognizing that while emotions arise, you decide how long they stay. If something upsets you, acknowledge it, but don't dwell on it. If someone disrespects you, set a boundary, but don't carry resentment. Holding on to negativity only hurts you, not them. When you realize that you have the power to shift your emotions at any moment, you stop holding on to things that drain you. One of the most powerful ways to take control of your emotions is through self-awareness. Start noticing how you react to situations. When something triggers you, pause. Instead of instantly reacting, ask yourself, why is this bothering me? Is it worth my energy? Most of the time, you'll realize that the situation itself is not the problem. It's your attachment to how things should be. The moment you release that attachment, the frustration disappears. Your mind is a tool, and like any tool, it can either work for you or against you. If you constantly feed it with frustration, self-doubt, or resentment, it will amplify those emotions. But if you train it to focus on peace, self-control, and resilience, those will become your natural responses. Your emotions follow the direction you set. When you decide that nothing has the power to disturb your peace, you create a mental environment where calmness is your default state. It all comes down to a simple truth. You are responsible for your own energy. If something is draining you, it's because you are allowing it to. If someone's words are affecting you, it's because you are giving them importance. The moment you stop giving power to things that don't serve you, they lose their ability to affect you. You are not here to be at the mercy of external events. You are here to master yourself. This level of mastery requires practice, but every moment is an opportunity. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen your control. Every time you choose peace over frustration, you reinforce your power, and eventually it becomes effortless. Imagine moving through life completely unshaken, knowing that no matter what happens, you are in control of your emotions. That is the ultimate freedom. So, from this moment on, take full ownership of how you feel. Don't wait for things to change. Don't expect others to behave a certain way. Decide that your peace is in your hands and nothing can take it away. Because when you fully embrace that truth, you step into a level of strength that nothing and no one can break. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every comment, every action, or every opinion needs a reaction from you. The moment you realize this, you free yourself from unnecessary emotional burdens. Most people go through life absorbing negativity without even realizing it. They take in criticism, internalize insults, and allow other people's energy to dictate their mood. But what if you could observe everything without letting it affect you? What if you could watch negativity unfold yet remain completely untouched by it. This shift in perspective is the key to emotional freedom. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm, yet remaining completely calm. The wind may be howling, the rain may be pouring, but inside you are steady. This is the power of learning to observe rather than absorb. When you stop taking everything personally, you begin to see the world differently. You realize that people's words and actions are a reflection of their own reality, not yours. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you. Maybe they insulted you, dismissed you, or acted rudely. Your immediate instinct might have been to defend yourself, to prove them wrong, or to fire back with your own response. But what did that accomplish? Most of the time, reacting emotionally does nothing but drain your energy. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of reactivity where your peace is constantly being disturbed by external forces. But when you step back and observe instead of absorbing, you reclaim control. Observation means recognizing that other people's behavior has nothing to do with you. If someone is rude, it's not because you deserve disrespect. It's because they are carrying negativity within themselves. If someone criticizes you, it's not necessarily because you're wrong, it's because they see the world through their own limitations. When you truly understand this, you stop personalizing their actions. You start seeing people as they are, not as threats, but simply as individuals dealing with their own struggles. When you become an observer, you no longer react impulsively. You don't feel the need to defend yourself at every turn. Instead, you choose your responses wisely. You understand that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every opinion needs validation. This doesn't mean you allow disrespect or toxic behavior. It means you refuse to let it consume your energy. You set boundaries, not from a place of anger, but from a place of wisdom and self-respect. Your mind is like a sponge. If you constantly absorb negativity, over time it becomes part of you. You find yourself feeling heavy, irritable, and emotionally exhausted without even knowing why. But when you learn to observe, negativity no longer sticks to you. You see it, acknowledge it, and let it pass, without letting it take root in your mind. This ability to remain unaffected is a form of true strength. It means you no longer need external validation to feel secure. You don't rely on others to determine your mood. You create a space within yourself that is untouchable, a place where no insult, no rejection, and no negativity can reach. When you reach this level of emotional mastery, people notice. They see your calmness, your ability to remain centered, and they begin to respect your presence, not because you demand it, but because your energy commands it. But this shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires practice. Every day, you will face situations that test your patience, moments that tempt you to react. See these as opportunities. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen your ability to remain centered. Every time you choose to observe rather than absorb, you take another step toward emotional mastery. Eventually, you reach a point where nothing disturbs your inner world. So the next time someone tries to bring you down, don't take the bait. Pause, breathe, and remind yourself that you are in control. Let them say what they want, act how they want, do what they want. It has nothing to do with you. Because when you master the art of observing without absorbing, you become untouchable. Your mind is a powerful tool, but it is also a creature of habit. It will repeat whatever patterns you feed it. If you have spent years reacting to negativity, feeling offended or getting frustrated easily, your brain has been trained to respond that way. But just as you trained yourself into these emotional habits, you can train yourself out of them. You can reprogram your mind to stay calm, centered, and in control, no matter what happens around you. The way you respond to situations is not random. It is conditioned. When something upsets you, it's not the event itself that causes your reaction. It's your mind associating that event with past experiences, past pain, and past fears. This is why different people react differently to the same situation. One person might get offended, while another doesn't even notice. The difference isn't in the situation, it's in the programming of the mind. Once you understand this, you take back control. You realize that if your mind has been conditioned one way, it can be conditioned another way. The key is to stop reinforcing negative emotional patterns. Every time you react with anger, frustration, or resentment, you strengthen that response in your nervous system. It becomes easier and easier to feel those emotions because your brain memorizes them. But the moment you decide to interrupt this cycle, you weaken those old patterns. The next time you feel irritation rising, pause. Instead of letting the automatic reaction take over, take a deep breath and consciously choose a different response. This is how you start reprogramming your emotional habits. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about training yourself to respond intentionally rather than automatically. Most people allow their emotions to control them without realizing it. But when you bring awareness to your reactions, you create space to choose. In that space, you have power. The power to decide whether you will let something bother you or whether you will let it go. Reprogramming your mind requires focus. What you focus on, you strengthen. If you focus on negative experiences, you train your brain to look for more negativity. But if you focus on self-mastery, peace, and growth, your brain starts filtering the world differently. You begin to see challenges as opportunities to practice control rather than reasons to get upset. You start noticing how much power you actually have over your emotional state. One of the most effective ways to rewire your mind is through mental rehearsal. Every morning, take a few moments to visualize yourself handling situations with complete calmness. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, but instead of reacting, you remain unaffected. Picture yourself in stressful situations, yet feeling completely at ease. The more you practice this mentally, the more your brain starts associating these scenarios with peace instead of stress. Eventually, this calm state becomes your default response in real life. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant in it will grow. If you keep feeding it negative thoughts, anger, and frustration, those emotions will take root. But if you consistently plant thoughts of resilience, confidence, and self-control, your mind will shift. Over time, your reactions change. What once triggered you no longer affects you. What once drained you now feels insignificant. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but every moment is a chance to reinforce a new habit. Every time you choose peace over anger, you strengthen that response. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you take another step toward emotional mastery. It's a process, but the results are undeniable. Imagine waking up every day knowing that nothing can disturb your peace, that no insult, no criticism, no inconvenience can shake you. This is not just an idea, it's something you can train yourself to achieve. It starts with awareness, it grows with practice, and before you know it, you have reprogrammed your mind to make calmness your natural state. So the next time you feel triggered, remember this: you have a choice. You can fall back into old patterns, or you can take control. You can let your emotions dictate your life, or you can train your mind to rise above them. Every time you choose growth over reaction, you are becoming the master of your own reality. Imagine walking through life completely unbothered by negativity, free from the emotional grip of anger or frustration. What would it feel like to have total control over your emotions, to never be shaken by someone's words or actions? Most people live in reaction mode. They take things personally, allowing their peace to be dictated by external forces. But here's the truth: nothing has power over you unless you give it permission. At the core of every emotional reaction is the ego, the part of you that wants to be right, to be respected, to feel important. The ego craves validation and fears rejection. It is always on the lookout for a threat, even when none exists. When someone criticizes you, your ego interprets it as an attack, triggering anger or defensiveness. When someone ignores you, your ego takes it personally, making you feel unworthy. But what if you could separate yourself from this conditioned response? What if you could step back and see things for what they really are? Just words, just actions, just events that hold no power unless you let them? The truth is, people's opinions of you are not about you at all. They are a projection of their own experiences, insecurities, and beliefs. If someone insults you, it is a reflection of their inner state, not your worth. If someone disrespects you, it is a sign of their own lack of self-control, not a statement about who you are. When you detach from the ego, you begin to realize that nothing external can truly hurt you. It's all just noise until you choose to engage with it. Detaching from the ego does not mean you become passive or indifferent. It means you develop the wisdom to choose your battles and the strength to remain unfazed by things that do not serve you. It means recognizing that your peace is more valuable than proving a point. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, expecting an angry reaction, and instead, you remain calm, composed, and unaffected. In that moment, you hold the real power. You are no longer controlled by the situation, you control yourself. This shift in perception is not just about avoiding conflict, it is about reclaiming your energy. Every time you react emotionally, you give your power away. You allow someone else to dictate how you feel, but when you stay centered, you conserve that energy for things that truly matter: your growth, your happiness, your peace. You stop wasting time overanalyzing conversations, replaying arguments, or carrying resentment. You start living in a state of mental clarity and emotional freedom. There will always be people who test your patience, situations that challenge your peace, but instead of seeing them as threats, see them as opportunities to evolve. Every moment of frustration is a chance to practice self-mastery. Every insult is a chance to strengthen your detachment. The key is to observe rather than absorb. When someone criticizes you, instead of reacting, pause and ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. Think about the last time you were truly angry at someone. Did it change the situation? Did it make you feel better? Or did it drain you, robbing you of your peace? When you learn to detach from the ego, you stop taking things personally, and in doing so, you become untouchable. Nothing disturbs you, nothing shakes you, because you understand that real strength is not in controlling others, it is in mastering yourself. So the next time someone tries to bring you down, remember this: their words mean nothing unless you believe them. Their negativity has no effect unless you absorb it. True power comes from choosing to rise above, to remain in control, and to walk through life unshaken. The choice is yours: react or evolve. Emotions are powerful, but they don't have to control you. Imagine being in complete command of your inner state, no longer at the mercy of circumstances or other people's behavior. Most people believe that emotions just happen, that anger, frustration, and irritation are automatic responses. But the truth is, your emotional state is something you can train, something you can master. It all starts with awareness. The body and mind are deeply connected. Every time you react emotionally, your body memorizes that state. If you've been quick to anger for years, your nervous system has been conditioned to respond that way. It becomes automatic, almost instinctual. But just as you trained yourself to react, you can train yourself to remain calm. It begins with interrupting the old patterns and consciously choosing a new response. Think of someone who frequently triggers you. Maybe it's a difficult coworker, a family member who pushes your buttons, or even a stranger who says something rude. Typically, your body tenses, your heart rate increases, and before you know it, you're caught up in a wave of anger. But what if, in that moment, you paused? What if, instead of reacting, you simply observed your emotions without letting them take over? This is the first step to mastering your state, realizing that you are separate from your emotions. They arise, but they do not define you. When you practice emotional control, you begin to shift from reaction to intention. Instead of being a victim of your emotions, you become the one in charge. And when you are in control, no one can manipulate you. No one can push you into a state of anger, frustration, or sadness without your permission. You become untouchable, not because you suppress your feelings, but because you learn how to process them without letting them dictate your action. This level of mastery is not about avoiding emotions. It's about developing a deep sense of inner stability where no external force can shake your foundation. The key is to train yourself to return to a calm, centered state no matter what happens. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, calmness becomes your default state. Just as anger or stress used to be, one of the most powerful ways to do this is through breath and awareness. When something triggers you, focus on your breathing. Take slow, deep breaths and remind yourself that this moment is temporary. This simple act interrupts the automatic response and gives you space to choose how you want to react. Over time, your body begins to associate challenges with calmness rather than tension. Another key is shifting your focus. What you focus on expands. If you focus on frustration, you will find more reasons to be frustrated. But if you focus on maintaining your inner peace, your mind will begin to filter out unnecessary negativity. Instead of dwelling on what upsets you, shift your attention to what you can control: your response, your mindset, your energy. When you become a master of your emotional state, people notice. You no longer get dragged into unnecessary arguments. You stop being affected by small inconveniences. You radiate a presence that others respect. This is not about being cold or detached. It's about operating from a place of deep inner strength and self-awareness. There will always be situations that challenge your patience, but that's the point. Every trigger is an opportunity to practice. Every difficult moment is a chance to refine your control. And with each test, you grow stronger. Eventually, what used to bother you no longer affects you. What used to upset you now feels insignificant. You reach a level where nothing external has power over your inner world. So the next time you feel yourself slipping into anger or frustration, pause, breathe. Remind yourself that you are in control, because in that moment you have a choice: react like you always have, or rise above and evolve. True power is not found in controlling others, but in mastering yourself.